So up to now, all the sentences we've looked at have contained the same verb, slept. And slept is a nice example of an English verb that does not take what we call a direct object. A direct object is a noun phrase which immediately follows the verb. So we can't say something like, the puppy slept the toy. That makes no sense at all and is an ungrammatical sentence. So the sentences that I've shown you using slept are what we call intransitive sentences. Intransitive just means sentences where you can't have a direct object. Now we're going to look at a very simple transitive sentence using a different verb. And of course a transitive sentence is a sentence that does have a direct object. So here's our transitive sentence. The raven chased the puppy. And we're going to build a tree for this sentence. We start with the same steps that we did with the intransitive trees. First, we label all the words with their category label. And then, because we know that a sentence is always composed of a noun phrase subject and a verb phrase predicate, we put those nodes in next. Of course, we have to have a sentence node. And we have one more step to include, which is a node for the noun phrase object. Notice that the noun phrase object is lower in the structure than the subject noun phrase and the verb phrase. When we add in the lines, we can see that the noun phrase object is inside of the verb phrase predicate. So here's our subject and here is our object. These are the two noun phrases in the sentence, but you notice they have quite a different relationship to the verb. It's helpful to think of the sentence tree a bit like a family tree. So we can call the S node, which comes at the top, the mother of the two nodes which come immediately below it. So S is the mother of NP and VP, which makes NP and VP the daughters of S. It also means that NP and VP are sisters. The other NP, the object NP, is not the daughter of S. And it's not a sister to VP or to the subject NP. The subject NP is sister to VP and daughter to S, but the object NP is daughter to VP and sister to V. Remember that daughter means I come below and sister means I'm next to in terms of the hierarchy. So, we have subjects and objects. You sometimes hear them referred to as arguments of the verb. Subject and objects are always noun phrases. They can't be any other kind of phrase. The subject noun phrase is always the noun phrase that is sister to the verb phrase and daughter to the S. It's also called the external argument. We'll see why in a second. And the object noun phrase is the noun phrase that is sister to the verb and daughter to the VP. And it's also called the internal argument. So here is a transitive tree. Here is our subject NP. It is outside of the verb phrase, sister to the verb phrase, so it's not a part of it. And that's why we call it the external argument. Whereas the object NP is the daughter of VP and inside, internal to the VP, so that's why we call it the internal argument. So we've talked about subject and objects. What about modifiers? So far we've only looked at simple transitive sentences, and they contain a subject noun phrase, a verb and an object noun phrase, and nothing else. But that's really not the way we talk. We don't speak in simple transitive sentences. We include tons of other words which provide extra information, like what kind of thing the subject NP is. Not just the puppy, but the fluffy puppy or the funny puppy. So we're going to look at an intransitive sentence now, which has a modifier in it. Remember that an intransitive sentence is one which does not have a direct object. So our sentence is the puppy slept on the kitten. And the modifier in this sentence is a preposition phrase on the kitten. A preposition phrase in this case is modifying the verb. It's telling us where the sleeping happened. Notice that it's internal to the verb phrase, but it's not a direct object, because even though it has a noun phrase in it, the whole thing is a preposition phrase. So it doesn't qualify as a direct object. So what can be a modifier? A modifier can be a single word, an adjective or an adverb, or it can be a whole phrase, like the prepositional phrase we saw, or even a string of adjectives and adverbs. And we can tell what it's modifying because of where it is in the tree. So if it's inside of a verb phrase, it must be modifying the verb. And if it's inside of a noun phrase, it must be modifying the noun.